Hi, my name is Anna Lindsay Hall, and this is my Unity and Diversity talk for Dr. Kay Bricado. The book that I read and that I'll be covering for you guys today is I Won't Learn From You by Herbert Cole. What initially drew me into this book was the title itself. I am really nervous about having students who are not going to want to learn from me for whatever reason it is, if it's because of my ethnicity, my gender, or anything like that. I'm really nervous about teaching, so this book I thought would have great advice for me and others who also have this kind of worry some about. So Herbert Cole's background, I'm going to again repeat it. He was born in August of 1937 in Bronx, New York, into a Jewish household. He attended Bronx High School of Science, and then he went on to get his degree in math and philosophy at Harvard University. But whenever he was in high school, he was in a predominantly Jewish area, and so he was seen as a majority at his high school, which is kind of the opposite of when he attended Harvard University, which was a predominantly Anglo-Saxon white male. He felt there was not a lot of Jewish or people like him, so he kind of felt out of place, a little distance. But I think it's perfect for him trying to become a teacher whenever he was becoming a teacher, because he was able to relate to kids who were both felt part of the majority and also knew what it was like to feel for the people in the minority. He could relate to more students. He understood what they were going through more. So that actually led him to go, around the country to talk to all these different types of teachers who were having problems like that and trying to get their students to be encouraged to learn. So he even talks about when one of his, whenever he went to one school in Texas where it was a whole predominantly Puerto Rican, Hispanic school, and there was a white teacher. She was trying to teach the Puerto Ricans a little bit about history, but she starts off by teaching them who founded Texas, and it was, Europeans, which they found really offensive, and she has had this situation over and over again with this classroom. So she finally just gives up, walks out, gives the class to Cole, and he, understood with them. He goes, I understand where you guys are coming from. It's hard to learn about a culture that's not yours, and that doesn't really have anything to do with you. So he was able to get the class under control and take care of that situation. So in situations like that, he's able to use his background and use where he came from as sort of inspiration and as a way of teaching the kids, I get it, I get where you're coming from, and was able to relate to them more, which is something I also hope to do with my students. I want to be able to relate to all mine, because I would love to hopefully get involved with my students and just know everything about them, because A, I'm a nosy person, and B, I want to be there for my students. I want to know what they're going through, if they let me know, of course. But so I think it's a big plus and a big, resource of his to use. So he pursued a career in teaching, which was kind of a shock to sort of the usual. If you're smart, you're supposed to get an academic career. So teaching was kind of seen as, something that you didn't want to do unless you had to do. It was not seen for really smart people. So him going into this career kind of contradicted all that. So whenever he got his degree from Columbia University, and then he would eventually graduate from there and go on to teach public school in New York, which was one of his dreams. He obviously became a teacher and a writer for more than 40 years. So, and he was writing multiple essays, books, articles, all about educational theories, specifically around his three main focuses, which are shown throughout this book. The three main subjects that he goes over in his theories are the not learning, hope mongering, as well as creative maladjustment. So here is a graph that, or some statistics that I found online. On the left, you see a percentage of students in public elementary and high schools in 2012. It's a little bit more than a half of whites, almost a fourth Hispanic. Then you have some blacks and others, including Alaskan American, Asian American, Native American, people like that. And then on the right, you see a percentage of teachers in public and elementary and high schools, public elementary and high school, in 2011 through 2012, and well over half of the teachers were white, and you had more blacks actually than Hispanics teaching and then you had relatively a little bit others. So the teaching range is still predominantly dominated by whites, Caucasians. So I think encouraging other races and ethnicities to go into the teaching world, because there are students like you who or have gone through the things that you've gone through, are able to actually, you might relate more to them than specifically me as being a white female as I ever could. And here are his 3 major guidelines and the major focuses that I will be discussing for this video. And that's 1, not learning versus failure to learn. Secondly, hope mongering, and then 3rd, creative maladjustment. So the first point, like I said, I'm going to go over is students who are not learning, which is a conscious decision, an action of someone refusing to learn about a subject or a new idea, or as Cole will put it, its not learning will consist of an active and often ingenious, willful rejection of even the most compassionate, well-designed teaching, basically actively not learning. Students may not be learning for a multitude of reasons. So maybe they get attention from when they're not learning something. Some may because they want to test the system, or they feel like students actually shouldn't be tested on information that they already know. One guy even was like, or like the test levels don't really define their intelligence level. One guy, was able to build like bridges and businesses, like building wise, but he couldn't pass linear algebra because he just didn't believe in the way his teacher was teaching them. Some other students may reject the whole idea or no. Some don't feel the information relates to their culture, gender, or anything else about them. One guy that really affected Cole's life was a guy named Acmer, who was an African American student who had a white, very racist, who thought blacks were lazy and, beneath him as a history teacher. And, Acmer would always find ways to bring whatever he was teaching back to whites being racist. It frustrated him so much that he eventually got kicked out of the class. And one day, whenever Cole was teaching a philosophy class on Sigmund Freud, he was saying, I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but Acmer blurted off, that's a white man's philosophy. Cole didn't disagree, but he was kind of, he stood back a little bit because he knew in order for his students to learn, they needed to respect everybody's views, which is something that he continues on to this day and something that he actually inspires me to do. Be aware of the students that you are teaching, making sure like what you're saying also isn't being taken as offensive to them or any reason, and making sure that you are there for everybody in your classroom. So Cole would have all of his philosophy students actually read articles, and Acmer took it upon himself and really looked at and analyzed everything that Cole had in the article, or what articles they were expected to read. He would try to find anything that was related to black or dark skins or anything like that being a negative connotation. So this in turn challenged Cole to actually find and be to really learn how to think as a other race, specifically in his case a black man, which was crazy to him because he was basically having to unlearn something. He was having to unlearn how to read it as a white man and relearn it as a whole, as a way to read, with everybody's views and minds, whether it be your gender or the sex that you are, or even the race that you are. He questioned even, why is it called history and not herstory, which, has inspired me to really, what if I have a board in my class that says history, herstory, their story, and have all of them, interconnected and see patterns of that, have it be like a man, a woman, and then both of them together. I think that'd be something cool. So it creates, you not learning is actually very healthy because it shows that your morals, specifically Acmer in this case, and his culture still remained at the center of what he decided to let be in his brain or what he decided to learn. To that point, not learning is not the same thing as failing. Failing is basically you're getting frustrated with the idea and it's really hard for you to learn. Not learning is you are actively doing something for you to, not get in the head or your mindset. So like I said, hope mongering is one of his second guidelines, and it's the affirmation of hope and the dream of a just and equitable future despite all the contrary evidence provided by experience. So basically it's just a way of saying, teachers need to be inspiring their students to be creative, to be imaginative, to, think outside the box. The Tattooed Man is actually what the chapter is labeled because it was one of the first books that Cole ever read that really inspired him to have an imagination and inspired him to actually write, and that's where his imagination lane came from. So that book actually encouraged him to, be a great storyteller too to his other peers. Which, like I said, that's how teachers should be. They should be nourishing our dreams. They shouldn't be putting stigmas on anybody, specifically with the terms of like good and bad, high or low potential, smart or dumb. I actually had a teacher who, in my 7th grade accelerated math class, who would actually, seat her kids in the order of the previous quiz, test, daily grade, whatever it was that was taken. And there was a top 8, which they all got some prize. Then you had everybody else in the middle who just kind of, they did well on the test somewhat. And then you had the stupid island, which was considered, she actually labeled it herself that. I was also in the class with a bunch of, mathletes, academic decathlon, people who ended up being my valedictorian, salutatorian, all that kind of stuff. So, and I felt really challenged. I was like, whoa, I might be in over my head here. So, and being on the stupid island did not really, encourage me. I made the top 8 once though, so I was very proud of that. But, having your own teacher kind of ignore you too and be more relative, because she was the mathlete advisor. She was more worried about what they were doing if they got it, and less worried about me and my friend who really didn't get it. So I was kind of labeled as dumb, and it really hurt my spirits until 10th grade, where I met a wonderful dance team teacher. Her name was Miss McPherson, and she brought my spirits back up. She was like, you know what? You are really smart. You are an incredible dancer too, which she was my dance team sponsor. Loved her for it. And she encouraged me to, go try out for things, be a UDA instructor, go try out for Palm Squad, go do anything you can with dance, because I believe that you can. And that's all that someone wants them to do. And that's the type of teacher that I want to be. I want to be involved in my students' lives. I want to make sure that, even hopefully becoming a coach one day, because I feel like coaches, they're amazing. And having that more time with your students and more time with your athletes, just the student athletes that are seen as, leaders of the school. And you want to help them be as smart as they can be and as great leaders as they can possibly be. But in order to properly use the concept of motivation, a teacher has to be aware of the use of the concept of failing, which is what I just explained. You have to be aware that what your students need to not fail, which is kind of different than motivation to me. Motivation is sort of encouraging them to do good things. You just don't want them to fail with the idea of failing. But that's the reason why I actually chose to have social studies concentration. It's my passion for history, and that we can actually, learn from it. Cole even says children need to connect with culture and history as much as they need to be free to contribute to them. So that goes back with him, students need to have their own ideas. We need to respect what they say, because, they might be the next leaders of our world and keep their dreams alive and their imaginations going, which I actually have a key on my neck that says dream. My boyfriend actually got it for me. I don't know if you can see it. It says dream because he says I take things too seriously. So that's a great reminder in reading this book. It really spoke to me, and I loved reading this chapter a lot. So in order to define creative maladjustment, we first need to define what adjusting actually means. It's the ability of an individual to live harmoniously with his environment, physical, social, intellectual, and moral, and with himself, keeping intact his personal integrity. So creative maladjustment basically implies of adapting your own maladjustment to the nature of the social systems that you are around. The best way I can define this too is, of course, with a story, because that's how I learn. He experienced whenever it was one of his first jobs too, I think in New York, where he was teaching a 5th grade class, and he bought them pastels to color with, but the teachers and student administration came in and said no, they're not allowed to use those because they are not, gifted as much as the gifted students were. So, they felt that they were not capable of using them. And a lot of these Puerto Ricans did come from poor backgrounds, so it was rare that, if anything, was bought for them. And that was really hard for him to take, because he was really, he stood back a little bit. He was just like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? And I probably would have been just as shocked as he was. It took him a while to actually realize that these thoughtless decisions really got him into trouble, made him actually move schools, which really stunk. He finally came to understand that children in schools act in a way they are shaped by the institution that they have been, brought up in. So if you're considered dumb, an institution will be considered dumb, unless your thoughts are changed otherwise. I guess I experienced a little bit of creative maladjustment with myself back with my 7th grade versus 10th grade teacher. He saw that he found himself actually maladjusting to the notion that the demands and the structure of the school were normal, and if kids were doing bad, then they were the ones who needed to adjust. Teachers were actually the ones who were supposed to be helping students work to make their school a better place for them to be, because at the end of the day, that's who we're trying to teach. And here are the two standards that I found that really, for the NCSS standards actually, that relate to the book, to my curriculum and my standards for social studies. The first being culture, and how human beings create, learn, share, and adapt to culture, and how they are dynamic and they can change over time. Only through experience, observation, and reflection, students will be able to identify elements of culture as well as similarities and differences among cultural groups across time and place. So that means students are able to, learn about different cultures, learn more about different cultures specifically in the classroom, and have them maybe even have the people of those cultures, explain more and know what they are and like what they're some of their what they know about it, what their family has taught them. I think that'd be a great way for the students to actually, teach the teacher something. The next one would be individual development identity. These 3 quotes, I know they're pretty long. I'll just read them. Personal identity is shaped by an individual's culture, by groups, by institutional influences, and by lived experiences shared with people inside and outside the individual's own culture throughout her and his development, which is basically what, Cole tries to get across from us. That there are people who actually identify with their culture, and they have a language and have a history all of their own. Questions related to identity and development, which are important in psychology, sociology, and anthropology, are central to the understanding of who we are. The study of individual development and identity will help students to describe factors important to the development of personal identity. So if we're able as teachers to harvest, what they've gone through in their personal identity, then we can actually help them grow and be a better person because of it. The one thing that this book has taught me is to literally, never judge an actual, book by its cover. In that sense, how I judge this book. And then also, never judge a person, by what they look like. I've always been taught, look at a person's heart, not their physical aspects, which is what I've tried to live by, and it's something that I want to not only teach my kids, but also teach the students that I have. We can't look at each other as, people with a lot of differences, but more like similarities, and we are a human race. We're not just blacks, whites, Hispanics, female, homosexuals. We're not just that. I think that's something Cole really tries to get across in his point, or in his book at least, and that's, we are all one and we are all people. We all have different stories, and we all have feelings too. And I think if we respect everybody's opinions and their, what they look like and what they've grown up as and their history, then we're going to be able to create a brighter and better future. And that's starting with teachers. And that is it for my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a very great day, and I hope you all learned something.